Hello and welcome to this episode of Cosmic Crow Tarot, where today we're going to be taking a side-by-side look at the Titanic First Edition and the Titanic Risen Spirits, which is the second edition of this amazing deck. Now, if you know me and you've watched some of my videos or read some of my posts on social media, you might know that I'm a huge, fan, not necessarily the right word, but I've always been rather obsessed with Titanic. It's not the movie that I'm obsessed with, it's the entire story. And proof that humanity doesn't necessarily know everything, and you can't always trust that things are going to work out the right way. You know, they said that this boat, this amazing ship, was unsinkable, and yet on the first maiden voyage, it proved to not be. They cut corners and did things cheaply, we think, and that's why so many people lost their lives on that day. And there was just a lack of paying attention, which could have saved them, you know, if they had just been able to use their binoculars and look out and see that iceberg before they came face to face with it. I understand it was the middle of the night. They're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It was I think around 11:15 when they first struck the iceberg. So the only light that they had were the stars. And I don't know, I guess I could look back and see if it was a full moon that night or something. But I get that it was dark, but this big white thing in the ocean, you know, pay attention, you might see it and you could avoid this tragedy. But we're not here to talk about the tragedy of that. It's been over 100 years, you know, we have to move on. But these decks right here, I absolutely love them and love having them in my collection, because Titanic, that's something we should remember, you know, pay attention to details. Focus when you're trying to do a job and do it correctly so you don't lose lives. So the original deck, you can already see differences here. The original deck I have the deluxe version of, which you can see right here. It comes in the wooden box and it has this nice little sleeve over it. But I opted not to get that for the second edition. It just didn't seem right to me to have both of them in the deluxe edition. The original is the one, you know, that has the actual happenings of it. And we'll take a look at those cards as we take a look at these cards. And you can see it has the white star line right here. I have it upside down. But it has the white star line right here. And then inside this box, which it's magnetic, you see the little magnet things right here. So it has a nice little close on it. Inside this box is the deck itself. And you can see here that both decks are very similar. They have very similar illustrations on the top. Inside the original one, you do have this little card in here, which is a passenger that really was on the Titanic. Now, if you can tell right here, I've never opened it. I don't know why I haven't opened it. It just doesn't seem right. So I just keep it in the box right there. It's underneath everything. And then the decks themselves are right here. And like I said, you can see that the Titanic is here and the Titanic is here. And there's the iceberg behind it. But this iceberg definitely seems like it's a little bit more deadly, because that's more of a skull. But the differences between these decks, the Titanic Tarot, the original first edition, has what actually happened, what happened underneath. So the minor arcana is all underwater, whereas the Titanic Risen Spirits kind of is if the Titanic had continued, or the days leading up to the accident that happened. So what we'll do is open each of these decks, have them side by side, and I did a video like this a few months back with the Deviant Moon Tarot and the Paradoxical Deviant Moon, where we flip the cards over one by one and see the differences between the actual cards. Now, looking at the backs of them, you can see that the backs are almost identical. I will tell you the difference. I'm not sure if you can tell this in the video or not, but on this back, on these cards, it's very glossy and very slippery, for lack of a better word, and these are more of a matte finish, so they're more smooth. Now, that might be because I've gotten the regular version instead of the deluxe version of the second edition, but I'm not positive. But that's the backs, and we'll flip them over, and you can see that both of them have the Fool as the beginning. And already at first glance, you can see the big difference here with the major arcana, at least, that there's no borders on the new edition. Now, I actually like the borders on these. I think they're really beautiful and creative. The illustrations, as you can see, are still the same, but they are a little bit bigger with the new edition because they don't have the borders on them. So there's the Fool. And then we have the Magician. And then the Empress. the Seer, which replaces the High Priestess in this deck. Now this deck is brand new. I have yet to use it yet. I did go through it yesterday and try to get the cards to not stick, but you can see that kind of didn't work all that well. Now we are on to the Empress and the Emperor. Now you can see too, I just noticed this, the wording or the font on this. You can see this one's written in cursive and this one is just like regular Times New Roman or something. Very carefully turn them over. We have the Hierophant and the Lovers. Just an absolutely beautiful illustration of the Lovers, and again you can see the difference there. These are apparently just getting ready to be married, and these seem to have already become married because there they are in their embrace, you can now kiss the bride kind of thing. Then we have the Chariot and Strength. And then the Hermit. Trying to keep my little piles in order here. It's never easy. The Wheel of Fortune. I know what's really interesting about this illustration, I don't know if they intentionally did this or not, but his head is down. So if he is the one steering the boat and he is the one that's supposed to see what is coming ahead, if his head is down like this, he's not going to see it. So he might very well be the reason that the Titanic sank. So Wheel of Fortune, you know, spin the wheel, take a chance. It might work out in your benefit, it might not. So there's that kind of energy with that. Had he looked up, maybe that situation would not have occurred. Sticking together again. Okay, we've got Justice next. Then the Hanged Man. And Death. I love the coloring on this Death card, like that red and that black and stuff. It's eerily beautiful. Kind of shows death came for many people that night. Then Temperance. And the Devil. And of course the Tower. What better illustration for the Tower but the actual sinking of the Titanic. So that's what we have for the Tower. Then we have the Star. You've got the star up here and the hope that the survivors had for being saved. And the Moon. The Sun. Judgment. And the World. Okay, we did notice during the Major Arcana, you know, the differences between the font, the borders, and that Lover's card. They're all different. That's the main things I've noticed. But when it comes to the minor Arcana, that's where the big differences are, and why it was really important for me to have both decks, because again, I love the Titanic. We have the Ace of Swords up first. You can see they are very similar, but again, it's the no borders on it and the different font that we can see the big differences there. And this is where we get interesting. Because the Two of Swords, which is the card that follows next, this one has the writing on it of what card it is, this one doesn't, but you can see she's underwater. So that is the theme with the original, is the characters are all underwater. Some are actually mer people as well, and that makes a lot of sense because if you think about it, the Titanic is underwater. That's what happened after the Titanic sank. All of those lives went under. Whether they, I mean, we can't really think that they became mermaids and stuff, but they did become one with the sea. So the revised edition, the second edition of the Titanic Tarot, shows more what happened on the Titanic, what could have happened on the Titanic, or what might have happened before it sank. So the Three of Swords here, the card of heartbreak and betrayal, you can see there it's stabbed into a jellyfish. But here it seems to be stabbed into like an icicle or something. Maybe part of the iceberg that they hit. And we have the Four of Swords, but this character is resting under the water, whereas this character is resting in his stateroom. And the Five of Swords. This one's taking away with the swords that he's left the other two characters down. And the Five of Swords here, he's in the room in the Titanic, perhaps one of the bars or something like that. These Six of Swords, you know, they're being saved, and he's got all of his swords. He might be able to save himself. the Seven of Swords, the Eight of Swords. Yeah, if you're starting to sink on the Titanic, perhaps getting in the elevator is not the best idea. The Nine of Swords, the Ten of Swords, almost said the 11 of Swords, but no, the Page of Swords. And with these decks, there's really good guidebooks, really nice guidebooks, and they do actually tell you the characters that are represented by the members of the court. We have the Knight of Swords, the Queen of Swords, the King of Swords, and then we are met with the Suit of Cups. Again, no borders on the Ace of Cups. Two of Cups. You see the characters here, but the fish are the ones partying down here. The Three of Cups. These characters are celebrating, and these seem to be celebrating too, even if it is underwater. The Four of Cups. The card I like to call the card of boredom. And you can see he's being offered another cup, but he doesn't care. He's over what he already has. The Five of Cups. The Six of Cups. The Seven. Eight. The Wish card of the tarot with the Nine of Cups. He has all those cups in front of him. He can make all of his wishes come true. And the Ten of Cups. Now, what I personally like about this illustration, I've been seeing it a little bit more and more lately. It's the Happy Family card of the tarot, as it's called, and usually depicts a mother, father, son, and daughter. But there's been a few cards I've seen lately that only depicts the two people, and I really love that, because when it comes to a happy family, it's not necessarily the mother, father, son, and daughter. It's whatever makes you feel whole and complete and happy. So if that's you and your significant other, that's fine. If it's you, your significant other, and a pet, that's fine too. It's whatever makes you happy. Your version of a happy family is your version. We have the Page of Cups, the Knight of Cups, the Queen of Cups, and the King of Cups. I don't know why, but the character of the King of Cups, looks like Nick Offerman, the dude from Parks and Recreation and a few other things. He kind of looks like him to me. And I have another deck in my collection. I don't remember which. I think it's the King of Pentacles in that deck. That I think he looks like Nick Offerman too. We're to the Suit of Wands, and again, no border, and a border, and the different font. That's the difference between those. And the illustrations on these aces are just, I've always loved them. I love that there's the new potential and stuff. That wand is coming up on shore. Sure, it sank, but there's still hope and opportunity moving forward. We have the Two of Wands. They each have the world in their hands, but one is rising up above the surface, whereas the other one's looking out into the ocean. The Three of Wands, the Four of Wands. Now that one's actually doesn't seem to be set on the ship. I guess maybe they're celebrating getting on the ship. The Five of Wands, the Six of Wands, Seven of Wands, the Eight of Wands. This one just shows the 8 wands floating, whereas this one shows, they're all working together and they're moving forward on the water because they've made it to the lifeboat. The 9 of Wands, the 10 of Wands. Again, I wanted to say the 11 of Wands, which technically, if you want to find the numbers of the members of the court, that's all you have to do. Is they follow the 10 of the suit, so then the page would be an 11. The Knight would be the 12. The Queen would be 13. And the King would be 14. That can add a lot to your readings too, because you have that energy. You could talk about the 1 and the 4, or what they combine to be for 5. So if you're the king, you're the lead in your life, you have the power to change and transform it into what you want it to be. And then we have the Ace of Coins, which is a single coin floating on the water. You could look down into the ocean and see that, and the illustration there of that. Sorry about the little glare there from the light. You can see the illustration there. It kind of shows the horse and riding it, so it's an interesting coin. We have the 2 of Coins. This one shows the balancing of a fish, whereas this one seems to show like a guy flipping his coins up. The 3 of Coins. And this one again takes place inside of the Titanic, which I really like. When I was a kid, one of my favorite games of all time is called Titanic Adventure Out of Time. And that was a computer game where it started out during World War II, and this guy had this really, really crappy apartment. There was cockroaches walking across it. There was all kinds of stuff going on. You got to remember it was 1942 when it started, so there was the war going on. So it started out, I think he might have gotten killed or something because a big bomb went off, and then you're transported back to the Titanic. And in that game, that's one of the first open world games I ever had the pleasure of playing, because you got to walk around the Titanic and interact with people. And I was seriously, I wish they would come back out with the game, make it a computer game again, an Xbox or PlayStation game, or even a game on your phone. I played that a ton. I would love to see that game again. That's seriously one of my favorite games of all time. Moving forward, 4 of Coins. You can see here we have the safe, whereas here we have the character counting her coins, it seems. The 5 of Coins. The 6 of Coins. And there he's playing a game, it seems. That's a card of the sharing is caring card, so he's not, we'll change it to maybe he's not playing a game, but he's actually sharing his wealth with others. The 7 of Coins. The 8 of Coins. The 9 of Coins. The 10. The Page. The Knight. The Queen. And that brings us to the final card in the deck of the King of Coins. King of Kings, yeah, right? Technically, he's the success and leader of the material happiness, so maybe he is the King of Kings. But that is a look at the entire deck. And I'll set those right like that. And you can see there's the guidebooks for them. And that's the original one, and then Titanic Risen Spirits is over here, and they look like the same that looked on the boxes. They are rather small, like little messages there. But you can see there, we'll do this one because he's right there. We'll turn these both over. And there it shares, the king is a symbol of great success and wealth. And they have down here who represents their king of, oh, I'm talking about, oh, that's weird. They actually made a mistake here, and I've just found it. You can clearly see here, King of Coins, and then if you look very closely, it does say King of Coins right there. But where it says right here is our King of Swords is John Jacob Astor IV. Now that is a mistake right there, it seems, because this is clearly the King of Coins. And when we think of John Jacob Astor, he was one of the most wealthy people on there. If I remember correctly, he owned like a really big store in New York City. Don't quote me on that though, that was just off the top of my head, but he makes sense for the King of Coins, although they did write King of Swords. Now I'll go in here, we should be in the same amount. I want to see if they messed up on this one too. Yeah, same exact thing. It says the same thing as the original deck. The King is a symbol of great success and wealth, and our King of Swords is John Jacob Astor IV. Now if we shuffle through and we see the King of actual Swords, it also says the King of Swords right down here, and it says our King of Swords is Archibald Butt. So they just made that little mistake. It's not a big deal. I mean, when you look at the illustrations, you don't necessarily need the guidebook anyways. That's what's the beauty of tarot, is you look at the illustrations and it sparks your intuition to really trust it more. And that gives you the messages that you have to share with others and with yourself. And that's what I love about the tarot. So with the illustration of the King of Coins here, you know, you can tell he's wealthy. Here's the giant building behind him. Maybe that's the building he owns, and he knows his own worth, and he knows that he's wealthy. I wouldn't be fully detailed if I didn't show you the inside of the boxes too. And this is the inside of the box for the first edition of the Titanic Tarot, and you can see down here that the Titanic is actually sitting down the bottom, but this box is empty of any pictures on it, so that's a big difference there. And then we have the back of the boxes. There it says Titanic Tarot with Barclay Mountain. Excuse me if I don't have this correct. I believe the man that created this deck is R.J. Tomlinson. I will leave a link down in the description so you can find this deck yourself. The Titanic Risen Spirits is available for sale now. The original Titanic is a little bit more difficult to find. I think I found it on eBay and Etsy. I will share a link in the description below if I can find that for you, so you can find the first edition if you want to add that. As it is out of print now, I believe it might be a little bit more expensive. The revised edition, the Risen Spirits edition, shouldn't be all that much. It is rather new. I think it just came out in the last month or so. So that is definitely one you could probably find for yourself if you were a huge fan of Titanic. So I really want to thank you for watching. I apologize for the little lack of having made videos recently. Yeah, Dash is still very much a part of my life. Raising a kitten is a little bit more difficult than I would have expected. She's a little bit crazy at times. I don't know if you can see this or not, but there are my arms. You can see nice little cuts there. That one's my personal favorite. It kind of like almost went to the vein. But yeah, kittens are a little bit crazy, so it's difficult for me to get videos and stuff done lately. My husband's actually babysitting her now, so I'm gonna cut this off. I want to thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.